Welcome to Brainpickings, the podcast where we challenge the status quo in HR and explore what's next for people, work, and organizations. I'm Leslie, founder of ZigZagHR, and I'm here to help you rethink, reboot, and retool the way you lead HR and your organization. In the two previous episodes of Brainpickings, we explored two essential building blocks of leadership together with Sarah Cheriff, Bram Doelage, and Niels Maas from SkillsGym. First, we talked about habits and why culture doesn't change through training, but through small habits done consistently. And then we looked at energy and why sustainable performance is not about working harder, but about managing your energy more intelligently. But even if you have the right habits and even if you have the energy to sustain them, there is still one place where leadership truly happens, in conversations. Because at the end of the day, leadership is not a concept, it's not a framework, and it's not a slide deck. It's what you say, how you say it, and whether you say it at all. And that's where many leaders struggle. Difficult conversations get delayed, feedback is softened or even avoided, expectations remain unclear, and small issues quietly grow into bigger problems. Well, in this episode, we zoom in on what Sarah Cheriff calls the conversation habits. We explore why so many leadership challenges are actually conversation problems, and why knowing what to say is not enough under pressure, and how strong leaders develop the ability to show up with the right balance of clarity, confidence, connection, and calm. And we also make it very practical. How do you recognize your default style? How do you handle difficult conversations more effectively? And how can small, consistent conversation rhythms prevent bigger issues down the line? Culture is not built in big moments. It is built in the conversations that you have every day. Joining me today is Sarah Cheriff from SkillsGym. Welcome. Hi, Sarah. Welcome back in our podcast studio. It's the third time already.
Oh, I'm so happy to be back.
You're still enjoying it?
Yes, loving it.
Okay. All right. Now, in the previous episodes, we talked about habits and energy as the key drivers, actually, of leadership. But of course, leadership really comes to life in interaction with others. Yes. Would it be fair to say that leadership ultimately plays out in conversations then?
That's what we discovered for people who know us. So we changed our name to SkillsGym. I think about 6 years ago. We used to be for people who know us from before. Our company name used to be Cute Solutions, but we liked the name SkillsGym because it really explains the idea of like you get stronger through consistency by doing small things every single day. It's impossible not to get stronger. So that's what we changed the name because habits were such an important part of our method. But one thing that we discovered is, well, first of all, 90% of all of our work habits are the result of environment in work. And we know this from research. So that means, for example, if you work in a company where there's a very open culture, or where people really follow up on goals, or where people attend meetings on time, put that person in another company where there's other habits. 6 months later, they're going to take over the bad and the good habits of the new place. So we see our habits are actually less personality dependent and more environment dependent. So one thing that we underestimated when we started working on habits and helping leaders build new habits is that, well, they are not going to stick with their new habits if they don't know how to get their teams on board. Because if, like we used to traditionally, in our leadership development programs, we would put leaders together in a group, and we would do all these kind of amazing exercises and have them talk amongst each other about like, how do we give feedback? How do we set goals? How do we have our vision come to life? But then they would have to go back to their team and kind of like, fingers crossed, hope they do it. So for us, what we discovered is if leaders don't have the right conversations about the new stuff they learned in our training programs, we might have well not have done it because it's not going to happen. So for us, because if you think about all the skills that we train people in, vision, goal setting, feedback, where does that happen? It's in conversation. Your vision doesn't get communicated in a strategy document or in like a town hall session. It lives or dies in the conversations that people have afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what looks like a people or performance problem often is actually a conversation problem underneath. So that's actually what you're saying then.
Yeah.
Now, when many issues escalate simply because the conversations didn't happen or because they didn't happen in the right way then. Huh? So if that is truly the case, then what are the hidden costs of conversations that are not going good or that we even avoid?
Yeah. Well, if we look at like the big three that we want to look at, retention, engagement, and performance, they are all directly tied. And there's a lot of research on that. Like if we look at when companies start introducing, for example, check-in conversations as a best practice, or when we get our performance reviews right. Like if we start introducing them, not only that, but also making sure that those turn into good conversations. Those impact those three big metrics. But a lot of the times, because I guess life is just so busy. Like if we talk to, I would say, honestly, like 90% of the managers that we meet, if you ask them, do you have a rhythm of predictable conversations? First of all, they don't really understand the question. It's like, no, we have regular meetings, but we're not talking about meetings. We're talking about conversations, conversations about vision, a conversation about progress, a conversation about, are you still happy here? Like the reasons why people would leave your team or why they're happy or not. Like, do you have a predictable rhythm? Usually they don't. Most of the time they don't. Only a few people don't. Doesn't mean they're not having them, but they're having them on an ad hoc basis. But if you think about what trust really is, and we also know from the research, like trust or this concept of psychological safety, it's the best predictor for team success. If you have high trust in your team, well, you're going to innovate better. You're going to do less micromanagement. So trust is really important. But if you think about what is trust, it's the predictability of behavior. But if I don't know, like, is my manager going to address something? Are they going to hold me accountable? Are they going to give me a feedback? If that's not predictable, then there's if that consistency isn't there, then people they're going to start slacking or not following up on things, not because they want to, I think, but I just think like everybody's got so much on their plate that it's human nature to follow the path of least resistance.
Yeah, that's true.
And if you know, like I set a goal, but they're probably not going to follow up on it. I got feedback, but they're probably not going to hold me accountable. It's just human nature to not follow it because you have a ton of other things to do.
Okay, that's very clear. Now, difficult conversations, they really feel hard, even when leaders know that they should have them. They often hesitate, delay them. So how come that difficult conversations feel so kind of emotionally loaded? Well,
if you think about yourself, I don't know, like, what about you? We often say, like, oh, people react defensive when they get feedback. But isn't it always difficult to get feedback? Not the good feedback. I think that's for most people, we like it. But it's difficult, right? If you get critical feedback.
Tend to take it very personally.
Like we do that. I think it's human nature. But if we look at why that is, it's actually because we can tell people like you don't need to be defensive, but if feedback is unexpected, meaning we didn't see it coming, and it's unsolicited, we didn't ask for it, it's actually processed apparently in the same area of our brain in which we process pain.
Or danger, maybe.
Danger, it's like a physical threat. It's processed in the same area. So thinking that people are not going to be defensive is like, I just punch you in the face, but don't be defensive. That doesn't make any sense. But if you have a predictable rhythm of conversations, then first of all, it becomes expected. If my manager tells me like, hey, Sarah, this is an important goal for you. Every 2 weeks, we're going to sit together. We're going to look at progress. I expect you, if you have a delay somewhere, to during these check-ins to explain or help me understand like what's the obstacle, how can I help, then that conversation becomes predictable to me. I know we're going to have it, and I'm probably not going to feel defensive because it also becomes in a way solicited because I get to put my say in it. I get to put things on the agenda. I get to prepare that meeting. So if we make the difficult conversations predictable, expected, solicited, they become much easier. But also because we're having these conversations on a more consistent basis, they are never the big difficult conversations that we tend to sweep under the rug because things will not fester. They don't have time to become big things. So earlier conversations are easier conversations. That's what we always say.
So let's not delay them. When faced with stress and under pressure, people tend to fall back on habits and reflexes, even if they know that they should do something else. So what patterns do you then typically see in companies?
Well, I think on a human level, when we're under stress and difficult conversations tend to stress us out, there's 4 reactions, and that is just because that is how we're wired as human nature. We freeze, we flight, we fight, we get argumentative, we start being defensive, or we fawn. Where like fawning is like the people pleasing. We tend to, oh yeah, I'm sorry, you're right, and I should. But it doesn't come from a centered and powered place. And if we don't have trained conversational reflexes, put any human being under pressure, we're gonna go into whatever feels more natural to us. Some people get defensive, they become the bulldozers. Like my grandmother, love her to death, but she was a very direct person. She would always say things like, I don't know why my friends are upset with me. I just told them the truth. So, or I'm like a people pleaser. That's like, I will definitely go into like the fawning, like the first 10 years of leading a team. I remember like literally every feedback conversation ended with me apologizing. and I remember Bram, who I was with in one of the previous podcasts. We've been working together from the very beginning for the past 1 year, so he knows me. And he used to tell me that, like, Sarah, stop apologizing. Why do you do that? But it's just because under stress, under pressure, that is my stress response. And
it's just what happens in our body.
And everyone has their own thing. Some people will freeze. Those are the people that avoid the difficult conversations. Like the people, the stonewallers, the silent ones. So all like these, these negative patterns. But we all have like, and I think depending on, I don't know, our childhood, our personalities, we all have like the version of ourselves that we're not so proud of in these. But we all can, and this is for me, it's like, it's kind of like become a mission because I see that so much of the leadership stress and anxiety, if we ask leaders, like, what's the most stressful part of your job? It's always the people issues. It's that one difficult conversation that they've been avoiding, that conversation they messed up, the thing they said that they shouldn't have said. And then they don't know how to repair. So then they have to like keep, I don't know, and avoiding it. It becomes worse. It's like everything that you avoid, it comes back like a boomerang. It doesn't go away. It's going to hit you stronger in the face. So for us, like, and that's like my mission, because I know for the first, I think 10 years of building my business, I didn't enjoy it. I was so stressed out. And if I look back on it, I think it's a pity because that was literally, I think from 27 to 37, you know, that's 10 years of your life that you take that home with you in the evenings, that you feel like an imposter. You think like everyone's getting this right. And also like the way that your team sees that, right? My team would see that I would avoid difficult conversations. They saw me like softening my message, sugarcoating it, like apologizing when I gave feedback. So over time, you kind of lose the respect and the trust. And fortunately for me, like I ended up in a business where, you know, like soft skills are super important. So I got the opportunity to work on it. And now that you feel this confidence in yourself, like I can have like a full week. If I look now at my calendar and I know like, oh, there's this client, they're a bit upset. They might not renew their contract. That meeting is on Tuesday. Wednesday, I have a meeting with someone in my team who asked for a raise and I don't really think that they're ready for it. Those are the things that used to stress me out.
Yeah.
I would not enjoy my weekend. Sunday evening, I'd start with this like doom and gloom kind of feeling like, and now I don't have that anymore. And I just feel like, I want to give that to everyone. I think that's the mission we're on with the conversation habit.
It's a beautiful mission. Now, it's not only about the words that you use as a leader, but also how you show up in the moment. You introduce the idea of the conversation arena, where every conversation, every conversation you say requires this certain type of energy.
Yes.
Then can you explain how leaders can especially become more intentional then about the energy?
Yeah. So when we talk about the conversation arena, we like that metaphor because we wanted to make people aware that those conversations, they matter. We know that also from the research. When people leave companies, they don't leave companies, they leave their managers, and it's because they don't feel heard, they don't feel seen or appreciated. And that's probably because you missed something in a conversation or the conversation didn't happen. So when you're in the arena, like anyone who steps into an arena, a boxer, a tennis player, they go in, they know the game, and they've got trained reflexes.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, I think, like I used to, you feel like this kind of guilt or shame or imposter syndrome, like I'm not really good at these conversations, and you just think it's your personality. But we can train those reflexes just like any skill, and you can step into that arena and you have the confidence of someone with trained skills. Like people who are coaches, they weren't born great listeners probably. They learn that skill. Or like you're a great interviewer. I'm sure there's a lot of skills that you've gotten better with over time of doing this. Or lawyers or therapists, they all just have some trained reflexes that we can learn from. And when you think about the energy that you want to go into conversations with, we've identified 4 energies that you should be able to have like on demand. That you think like, now it's time to be this, now it's time to be that. And all of these energies are 100% trainable. And it is confidence, so that you deliver a message without apologizing, without softening your message like I used to do, without the hedging language. The stand tall.
Here I am.
The posture. You have to own it.
Yeah.
Then there's connection, of course. In a conversation, you want to be able to connect, but deeper than just like the surface level. Like we kind of know like when someone's like really connecting with us or not. Then there's clarity. That was the one for me that I really had to learn, like no softening language, no doubt language, keeping your message short, leaving a point at the end of your message, not over-explaining. And then the 4th one is calm. That you can bring into a conversation this sense of calm, setting a boundary, knowing those are my values. This is the scope of the conversation. We're not going to have that. And usually if you think about like in our trainings, we ask people to do that. We ask them like, okay, under pressure, how would your team describe you? In a positive way. You don't even have to think about the negatives because that tends to make us insecure. We don't want to make people insecure. But if you would just think about like, they would probably describe me as like direct, empathetic, good listener, honest, whatever it is. But it tends to place you in one of those 4 quadrants. It tends to place you confident and clear, for example. But maybe not connected and calm. We all have like the 1 or 2 things that we naturally are good at. And then we have the 1 or 2 things when we are put under stress, when we go into that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, that just fly out of the window. And when we train people, when we bring them together, we often work with a business actor and people don't like it. It stresses them out because they say, but this is not how I would normally do it because I'm sitting in front of an actor and my peers are watching. But there's a reason we put you under stress, because under stress, you're gonna step into that pitfall. And then we can easily see, oh, for you, it's like the connection that's missing, or it's the confidence, or it's the clarity, and it's the calm. And it's so easy to train people on those reflexes to be able to access those 4 energies that I just think it's such a pity. Like, why wouldn't we do that? Or why do we expect people to naturally just be good at that?
Okay, but it is very important that you have this range as a leader.
Yes.
And that you can kind of on demand say, well, I'm going for that.
Yeah, we call it conversational range.
Okay.
When you're in the arena, when you're put under stress, ideally you are not just direct, you are direct and caring. That's what we call radical candor. If you're only direct, well, you're a jerk. But direct and caring, those are the people that we trust.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if maybe you're, for example, you're very inspirational, but inspirational without being a good listener, you're going to create a passive team over time.
Yeah.
So it's always like, if you think about what are my qualities, think about what is the opposite of that quality. And you're a great communicator, or that you've made a lot of progress in your communication if you can say, I have both.
Okay.
Yeah. If it's end-to-end.
Yeah. Okay. Now, leaders, what I see is that they try to show up at every meeting. They want to answer every question that's popping up on any channel. So I think it's really exhausting. You can't keep it up. Yeah. But instead, you teach leaders to focus on just a few conversations, you say, that drive most of their impacts. And there are actually 4 conversation rhythms, as you call them. And you say it's the conversation heartbeat. I really like how you put the language to it. So maybe let's elaborate on those 4 conversations. What do they look like? And how does it make leadership more maybe effective and especially less reactive then?
Yeah. So that rhythm that we talk about, it's daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly. That's how we make it easy for leaders to remember it. And we say, if you turn those 4 conversations with your team into like a predictable rhythm, then you're covering 90% of your leadership basis. And then you don't even have to worry about all the rest. You're doing your job as a leader. The daily one is what we call the daily coaching nudge, because the leaders that we work with, they don't have time for full-blown coaching conversations, nor do they have the skills, most of them. They're not going to like book in their calendar a coaching session with everyone in my team. But end of the day, you do want the people in your team to grow, to become more self-aware, to improve. So you have to coach them somehow. And a coaching nudge is just as simple as it's that 30-second, hey, Leslie, loved how you did that. Or, hey, Leslie, next time, could you do that? It's just that.
Just as simple.
So simple. But so many people that we talk to, they tell us, like, I don't really actually know where I stand, or I miss appreciation, or I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Those things can be solved via that 30-second coaching nudge. And it's just, I think, the biggest reason why people don't do it is because in their mind, they don't see themselves as coaches. They see themselves as like managers.
They make it kind of too big or something?
They make it too big, or they kind of think like, I'm the manager, I'm focused on the operations results. And results. And I think a lot of people, it's almost like they're humble. They feel like, oh, it feels awkward to tell someone senior in my team that they're doing a good job. But every single human needs recognition. But we also need, to be held up the mirror from time to time and to know what we can improve. So that's the daily coaching nudge, just being more aware. I often give people the advice, like, you're thinking it anyway, now learn to say it.
Yeah.
We've been working together. I love how you always, like, you're actually really good at that. You say, like, after a podcast, you will literally tell me, like, Sarah, loved how you always bring in a story, or like, it's like this kind of feedback. But then I know, okay, that's actually really good because I'm not used to this. So
I'm going to do more of it.
Yeah, I'm going to do more of it. So tell me if I'm doing it too much though. So that's the coaching nudge. Then there's the weekly feedback bite. Weekly feedback bite does not mean you as a manager have to give feedback every week, but you have to make sure that the people in your team get feedback every week. So the weekly feedback bite could be just something as simple as you're sharing data every week and you're saying like, hey, curious about your thoughts. Or it could be something as simple as just giving feed forward. People always think of feedback, but feed forward is actually much easier to do. And feed forward could be like, hey, next time in our one-to-one, could you like look at the numbers before we sit down?
Yeah.
That's better than telling like, hey, you didn't prepare for this one-on-one, but they still get the message. Yeah. Then there's the monthly check-in. The monthly check-in is just 2 questions. It's a 10-minute conversation. What are your priorities? How can I help? And then the 4th conversation is your yearly performance review. And the reason why in a lot of companies, the performance reviews have a bad rep, they're very time-consuming, it's not really motivating. It's because the yearly rhythm, the rhythm throughout the year isn't there. If you have the daily coaching nudges, the weekly feedback bites, the monthly check-ins, the performance review just becomes like great accumulation of and a natural flow of all those conversations throughout the year.
Okay, all right. That's really practical. I can think for people who are listening or watching. I think we kind of come to the end of the podcast series. Now we talked about kind of to summarize it. We talked about habits in the first podcast. We talked about energy, and now we're talking about conversations. The importance of having those conversations throughout years, make them predictable, as you say them. If listeners would take away 1 or 2 things to apply immediately after they listened, both in how they show up, but also in a conversation that they should prioritize. What would be your advice for them then? Yeah.
Well, I think we all have a gut feeling, right? We all, if we take a moment to look in the mirror at the beginning or at the end of the week, we kind of all know, oh my God, like I'm like, there's this that I'm carrying with me. I didn't sleep well, or there's that person I didn't really connect to, or that there's a conversation I should be having. So if you just make it a habit to ask yourself at the beginning or at the end of the every week, looking forward to the next, what habit do I need to prioritize and what conversation do I need to be having? I found that for the people that we work with, for myself, that solves like 90% of my anxiety. If like I know that, okay, I've got the conversations I need to be having in the calendar, it's gonna happen, then I don't need to, like, my head doesn't need to spend time on like, who do I need to reach out to?
It's not asking too much energy. It's not asking any more energy.
No, and nothing's building up. Tension isn't being created. And sometimes, like I said, like you have this gut feeling. Sometimes when I think about, if just by asking myself the question, is there a conversation I need to be having? It's like, oh yeah, there's that one client. And I kind of feel like there's been like a distance, or, oh, there's a trainer in my team I haven't heard for a while. And sometimes it's a habit that you need to prioritize, that you feel like, yeah, energy is a bit low, so I need to make more time for my recovery moments this week.
Okay.
And I think intuitively, just by asking ourselves the question, we kind of know the answer. It's not rocket science here. It's like our intuition.
You have to ask yourself the question.
Yes, that's the habit.
Yeah. Wow, I have the feeling that I have learned so much throughout these 3 episodes. I think that the very good news is that it is indeed not rocket science, but it is actually about reflection, about asking yourself also those questions, taking time to recover, to be aware when your energy level is kind of running on a low. I took so much of these 3 podcasts. I would like to thank you for that. I'm sure, I hope, I'm very eager to learn about people who are listening and watching throughout this series, what they have learned. So maybe we can ask them when we share this series. Thank you very much for joining me in our studio. So it was a pleasure.
Please let us know if you took away any habit.
Reach
that's
out.
What like makes our day. That's why we're doing it. And thank you for for having us. It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thank you, of course, for listening. I hope you enjoyed this podcast and also our series. If you're eager for more, be sure to look on our YouTube channel or via our podcast app. And you can there listen or watch every other episode that we had in this series these last few weeks. If you're eager for more, be sure to subscribe, of course, to our YouTube channel. And of course, as you already know, it is a great time to be in HR. See you next time.